Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. President Buhari criticizes past administrations for the mismanagement of the nation's economy, queries over $15 billion allegedly spent on power by a former head of state without result. Vice President Oshibajo seeks revamp of nation's security architecture as Catholic priests lead nationwide protests against killings in parts of the country. The CBN Monetary Policy Committee leaves all rates unchanged for the 16th time in a row over fears of budget implementation and election spendings. And President Trump says North Korea must meet certain conditions before historic talks begin. Now, channelstv.com has more information for you, and youtube.com/channelsweb. You can watch our videos. You can also watch us on your mobile device via your browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows devices from their respective stores. Besides giving you access to news updates on the go, the Channels TV and Channels 24 app have an eyewitness feature that you can use to share pictures, videos or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu and then follow the instructions. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank has once again left all rates unchanged for the 16th time in a row at the end of its two-day rate-setting meeting in Abuja. Briefing the media after the plenary, the CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele explained that the decision stems from fears of budget implementation and effects of election spendings. Our business correspondent Temple Ashaju reports.
As with all meetings since July 2016, the 261st meeting of the CBN MPC offered analysts an opportunity for projections and guesses.
The trajectory on growth is no longer positive, it's now negative. If that is not a signal for these MPC committee members to understand that we're looking at least a 50 basis point on interest rate cuts, at the minimum, I would look at 100 basis points cut easily.
This decision in the last year that MPR has remained around the 14%, I feel it's in the best interest of the economy and really will not have any major impact on fixed income instruments.
And at the end of the day, the decision by the majority of the 9-member committee was in favor of rate retention.
The predominant argument for a hold at this time is to await more clarity on the evolution of key indicators, that is, the passage of the budget and implementation, economic activity and traction in fiscal policy in 2018.
While the committee takes a wait-and-see approach at economic developments, analysts differ on the committee's decision.
If I were a member of the committee, I would have made similar arguments and possibly arrived at the same conclusion in the light of developments globally and also locally here.
Most of the time I had that argument that, okay, interest rates have to be up because you want to retain portfolio investors, you want to attract portfolio investors, but you are penalizing the domestic investors. So I think we need to watch some of these things.
The monetary benchmark rate may appear high at 14%, but the CBN will be expected to maintain its guide on market rates, coupled with the knock-on effects of reduced domestic borrowings. Temple Ashaju, Channels Television News.
Let's take a deeper look at today's rate-setting meeting and what it means for the economy moving forward. Joining me now is the CEO of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rewane. Thanks a lot for coming in.
Good evening.
I remember the last time we talked about this, you were complaining about status quo economics. Should I ask you what you think now that it's still unchanged?
Still unchanged, status quo economics.
Yeah.
Do nothing, but at the same time, what are the arguments for doing nothing? The arguments are simple. The fear that inflation could rear its head again, the fear that election spending is around the corner, the fear that the minimum wage has not been accounted for in the budget and could trigger off price inflation, the fear that the U.S. interest rates are going to go up again, so the interest rate inflation differential will work against the naira. So those are solid arguments. But you have to ask yourself, what exactly is the problem? Is the problem price inflation as a result of excess demand in the economy? No. The fundamental problem is output, productivity output, and also the problem of unemployment. So now let's take another look at the other side of the coin. One, the PMI, which is the Purchasing Manager Index, is down from 59 to 51. Consumer confidence is down to -6. GDP has declined from 2.1 to 1.96 from last quarter down this quarter. Interest rate sensitive sectors of the economy are actually contracting and slowing, notably agric, transport, and construction. So the sectors that employ more people, the labor-intensive sectors, are the ones that are contracting. The sectors that don't employ many people, insurance, oil, and all of that, are the ones that are growing. So it's a vulnerable and a very shaky, weak recovery. But also of note is the fact that Ghana has cut interest rate 5 times in the last 12 months. And guess what? Inflation is down to about inflation is down to 9.6%.
But what about
growth is up? Growth is 8.5%.
What about those that say that we don't have the same set of circumstances as Ghana? I was listening to that argument today, and they've said that we're not going through the same thing they're going through.
No, that's a very puerile argument. The argument is simple. Is this price inflation as a result of excess demand, in which case you use interest rates to tighten it? We have contraction in money supply, right? And that was borne out by the statement. There's contraction in economic activity in certain areas which employ people. So underemployment is above 40%. And when you add inflation to that underemployment and unemployment, you have a misery index in excess of 50. That is not a clear picture. But the truth is that let's go and ask ourselves, what does this mean, and what will happen next? To businesses, unemployment and unemployment will remain high. The stock market will wobble. Interest expense of companies will remain high. And deposit rates are already falling. But what we must note is that the policy rate itself is not as important as the actual effective rates. In the last 2-3 months, the secondary rates by the central bank and DMO have actually declined. So that's good news. Interest rates have actually come down, right? And the fact that interest rates have come down, the fact that liquidity has increased, does not mean that banks are lending. The central bank alluded today to the fact that they may penalize banks for not lending to the appropriate sectors. But what is important, look, today, how will it affect you as an individual?
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. Because each time we have the Monetary Policy Committee sit, I was even going to criticize you, for telling us that they couldn't form a quorum the last time. They formed the quorum. In spite of the quorum, we're still status quo ante. So how does that affect?
2 years, nothing has happened.
How does that affect the average person, the average worker, the average
this is how it affects you. One, if you're a worker, until the wage review happens, you've actually had an erosion in your income, and nothing is going to happen because interest rates are going to still remain high. 2, domestic food prices are going to go up because this is planting season and it's also Ramadan season. And what are we seeing? Gari, which is as low as 7,000 per bag. Palm oil is 10,000 per bag. It came down all the way from 25,000. Semolina is 3,000 a bag. Rice is 15,500. And beans, which was as high as 34,000, is now down to 28,000. That's Olotu beans. Now, we are going to begin to see these things increase again. And for the middle class, you're going to see your rent will increase, your school fees remain flat, and your salaries remain flat. For the others, that's what's going to happen. For the affluent people, it really makes no difference. All your summer flights are going to increase your tickets. But in the final analysis, what is going to happen is that the expanded budget spending is going to kick in. The activities of government, credit to the private sector, will remain flat, and unemployment will continue to rise. The external debt will increase, and there'll be the growth will become stronger, but not strong enough.
All right,
so generally speaking, not a bad day, but we just have to keep our fingers crossed to see what happens next.
Indeed, we shall do that. Thank you so much, CEO of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rewane, for joining us on the news at 10 tonight. Thank you. From there, let's cross over to Abuja, and here's Linda Akigbe. Linda.
Hello, Ijoma, and welcome to Abuja. Now to the courtroom, where the trial of the former National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Olusametu, for alleged fraud continued today. Mr. Metu was, however, absent at the Federal High Court in Abuja, while his lawyers asked the judge to adjourn trial because he was said to be receiving treatment in the hospital. But the prosecution counsel rejected the plea, claiming that the court is unaware of what transpired in the hospital after the defendant was taken there. Our correspondent Amaka Okafo reports.
The trial of the former National Publicity Secretary of the PDP, Mr. Olusametu, continued at the Federal High Court, even though he was absent. His counsel, Mr. Emeka Etiaba, made an application for the court to adjourn the trial because his client is on admission following his accident in court on the previous day. This application did not sit well with the prosecutor, Mr. Sylvanus Tahir, who asked the court to reject the application. He went further to urge the court to hold Mr. Metu wanting for misconduct because there is no evidence before the court to show that he was indisposed and unable to come to court. The prosecutor did not stop there, as he also informed the court that a party in the suit had appeared on a national television station making statements that were prejudicial to the case.
There has to be a kind of evidence to furnish before the court that, look, based on the medical report issued by Sosos Hospital, the man is still on admission. That was not done. They just jumped into the assumption that the court should presume the man is ill and on admission. And I think that is wrong. So that forms the basis of our objection.
Responding, counsel to Mr. Metu first pointed out to the court that it was wrong for the prosecutor to make an application in the process of responding to an application. He added that the prosecution's application was based on hearsay, since the prosecuting counsel was told that a party to the suit was on national TV talking about the case. Further, he argued that the prosecutor failed to inform the court that the lawyer to the prosecution, the EFCC, had also appeared on the said program. He therefore asked the court to turn down the application for being erroneous and based on hearsay.
The pathetic thing about it is that he was relying on information given to him. He said he was driving to court and somebody called him and told him that. And that is what we call hearsay in law, which amounts to nothing, as in nothing.
After 4 hours of argument, the trial judge adjourned to Wednesday, the 23rd of May, for ruling on all 3 applications. Amaka Okafo, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Federal High Court sitting in Lagos has fixed June 27 to await the report of the proceedings from the Supreme Court in the trial of the chairman of Innocent Nigeria Limited, Innocent Chukwuma, and 5 others. The defendants approached the Supreme Court to challenge the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court to hear the matter. The federal government had filed a 4-count charge of forgery against Chukwuma and others over alleged falsification of shipping documents to clear goods valued at 2.4 billion naira. The counsel representing the 3rd and the 6th defendants, Mr. Makati Mbaduga, informed Justice Ayokunle Faji that the position at the Supreme Court remained the same, as the pending appeal had not been heard. In a short ruling, the court held that the manner with which Mr. Mbaduga was handling the appeal was not in conformity with the provisions of the Criminal Justice Act, which supports a speedy trial. And when the news at 10 returns, Central Bank of Nigeria plans to unveil operational framework for the currency swap deal with China next week. Please stay with us.